We are all connected. So join me as I talk to like-minded people about topics that are appropriate to the current times we are living in. My name is Lerato Shabalala and this is Relevant.
Hello, everybody in South Africa and beyond. Welcome to another episode of Relevant. I'm incredibly excited about my guest today. If I were to start reading all his awards, I'd never finish. We'd do it until 2021. That's how accomplished this man is. He is, for me, in the embodiment of Black excellence and somebody that I quite revere. I'm very lucky that I actually know him. He is the founder and the brand architect behind DNA Brand Architects. Please help me welcome one of the most amazing marketers in the Southern Hemisphere, Sylvester Chauke. How are you?
Hey. I'm so excited to be relevant. Thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to this conversation. And I must say, having met each other so many times, it's so good that we got to spend this time today to just chat about this. Really cool.
Exactly. I mean, I think what's wonderful is, about you, Sly, is that you will try anything. I mean, one of the things I love about why you're an entrepreneur, you and I have done projects that have never gone anywhere, that circled, and this is part of an entrepreneurship, is that some things work out, some things don't. And so what I love about you is that you're always willing to go there. So I guess my first question to you, and you've been asked by several people who've interviewed you over the last 6 months of us dealing with COVID-19, is how have you been dealing? How has it been? Now we're level one, so things are slightly at ease, but how have things been for you, and how have you been holding up?
I have to say, when the president announced the lockdown in the first 21 days, there was a lot of anxiety, as you can imagine, in terms of how we were going to be able to manage the business through that transition. So I remember sitting in my office and having to think about what are we going to be doing over this period, and how are we going to manage the clients, the projects, the financial aspects of the business, but also, making sure that the people are also good over the period. So I was quite nervous, and I was nervous about a couple of things, but mainly what the impact would be on the clients, which then impacts the business, which then impacts the people. And that understanding was something that was quite important for me to get to. So it was incredibly challenging. And I think people talk about the financial business of COVID a lot. So the financial impact on a business, but there is a lack of understanding of the emotional impact of the leader, the people, and the ripple effect of that challenge across then what we do as well as businesses. So it was, I think, just like anyone who is running a business, or even an entrepreneur, a businessman, or a store owner, the key thing was just the sustainability of the business over that period. And with a lot of uncertainty, because remember, we were 21 days and then it got extended, and then we didn't know when we'll be able to come back. So you're also not quite sure, where is it going to end? Because I remember the first 21 days, I had a plan of 21 days. So financially, this is what it means for 21 days, for our people, for our clients, for our projects. But beyond that, because it was so open, it was very, very challenging, because it was it wasn't quite certain in terms of when that was going to end. I must say that it resulted in a lot of reflection, and I think for me as a leader, I think it's forced me to be even more brutally honest and clear about what is it that we need to achieve.
Sure. I mean, I think one of the things that is a huge theme in all your interviews that I watched is you are always about the people first, always. And you stress that it's not always about the money, that actually, if it's about the money, and this is where you and I really agree, that if if money is the reason why you want to be an entrepreneur, then you've got a bigger problem, because that won't sustain you. But if you are aware of the people and you take care of the people, then your business thrives. How have you and your team sort of managed from being remote to then coming back into the office? And everybody has, I know from my team, people have been in different states of mind. Some people handled it well, and then some people, it really has been very tough for them. So for you and the DNA team, how have you guys bandied together during this time?
I think from the beginning, it was clear that we needed to unite and manage the challenge that we were all facing. And luckily, the whole world was facing the same challenge. You know, every family in the country was going through the same thing. So the importance of us knowing that we need to ride this wave, and we know that we have to ride the ups and the downs. You know, in business, I think, you know, we know that you know, there are great moments, but there's also some low moments as well. And I think we knew that we need to ride this one together. But part of that was also quite challenging in the initial stages, because not all of us in the office come from the same background, right? So are people able to work remotely was a big question in the initial stages with our HR. Do they have not only technology, because we talk about the technology to be able to do so, but also do they have the space to do so? Can they go into a room and be able to have a conversation? Because not all of us have got terraces and sitting next to the pool and having a nice Zoom call, right? But there were a lot of people, of young people particularly, who needed to kind of be in their little closet so that they can have peace and quiet, because the where they live was not quite right. So it was quite important for us to understand what that the lay of the land was for each and every single individual. That was engaged, and so part of that was just to make sure that we are all on the same page with regards to ensuring that we are able to deliver what is required. So the first thing was making sure that we all are able to manage, during this period. And then emotionally as well, because remember, it was in a moment where also we are starting to hear about our family members who got COVID. And even in my instance, that I lost a couple of family members, through this. So the emotional drain that also arrived, because you now are concerned about the family, and you're concerned about yourself, and you're concerned about the health of your immediate family, but also the business, because an impact of an outbreak in an office like ours would be quite challenging to be able to kind of experience and manage. And so I think just being able to be clear about what the challenges were and what is it that we were going to be facing was paramount, because at least we were all on the same page, not only in terms of the business must do well, the money must happen, the clients must be served, because that's an obvious place to go. But amidst all of that, able to work properly in your environment, and so many other difficult things that were happening. So I think that what was clear was that let's get our people set up, then let's identify what are the key projects and areas we need to focus on. Then let's then look at how we're going to do that, and then let's just deliver that even with all of this. And I think that was quite helpful in terms of how we've been able to do that. And I must say, two things happened. The one was we all, for the first time, needed to rally behind not only the business, but also fight a pandemic together, And then two, what also happened was that some of the team members that I probably would have thought, oh, they're so junior, or they still need a couple of years to grow, I saw them rise so quickly. And that was incredibly exciting to see the improvement and what the challenge also led to the growth of my team. I was really inspired by that.
I think that's so incredible that there's in a time like this, positive things can come out, because that's true. It's not all bad. There are some amazing things that are going to emerge out of this time, whether it's finding your confidence or it's being able to see things differently. That's really, really crucial. So I love the fact that there's members of your team who blossomed during this time, because we
Mm,
need to take the good. We need to take the good. It can't all be
mm,
bad. So you have many awards, but one of them is one of the 100 most influential Africans, which I think kind of is in line with who you are. You are an activist. This I know personally, and I think everybody who knows you knows how much you are um, about Black excellence. You walk the talk, you wear it, you know what I mean. The art that is hanging from your house is South African, Nelson Magamo, to the masks that you wear, which are my closet. So you really are not talking Black excellence for the sake of it. You really are it. But I want to ask you, were you a bit surprised by that? Because you were the person who created other brands, not created, but hyped them, but made them better, helped them know how to communicate to people. And so whether it was Nando's or whether it was Vodacom or whether it was MTV, you were the person who was there talking about the brand. And then suddenly, not suddenly, but there came a change where you became the focus, where you as the person became a person of interest. Did that surprise you a little bit, that you became somebody that many of us, you have almost 60,000 followers on Instagram, and so we really, we go to you, we want to absorb all your knowledge. Did that surprise you, that so many people are like, Sylvester, who are you, talk to us?
mm. I have to say, it's humbling, because when you start your career, you want to just survive and help your family and kind of, get going and make your dreams come true, so to speak. And I have to say that when I was at Nando's, I think that gave me a huge opportunity to not only showcase my capability as a marketer, but I think the work that was done is what led to who was behind that and who are the individuals behind that. And I think as a result, then there was lots of interest and people wanted to just know a little bit more about the person who was, doing the interviews and responding on behalf of the brand. And I think that it was surprising, because I always used to think that from a brand perspective, it is about obviously building what utilizing and supporting the brands that you work with. And I think to now all of a sudden, I think be in a space where I too have got a voice, I can walk into the room without the brand, was actually quite incredible. And I must say, it also taught me the importance of not only doing the work you need to do for the businesses that you work at, but also being vocal about what you stand for and what you're about, just so that regardless of where you work, you'll always carry with you in the essence of who you are. And the companies that you go to, would actually employ you for that, and I think that for me was an amazing lesson. And I do advocate for a lot of brand managers and marketing managers or CMOs, for them to have not only a good expression of their brands that they work on, but also their thinking and what they think about the space as well.
I think it's amazing that one of the things you've always done is big up the people who came before you in the marketing and comms sphere, and all the stuff that you gain from them, and you speak about the things that you've learned. And I think it's amazing that you have become that person as well. And so I wonder if 2019's Stained Against Bland were both authors. And it is an incredible book. Can we see the book? I couldn't. Guys, the book is sold out in Cresta. Look at that. Look at him.
Yeah.
We love it. When I get
such
an
amazing...
sign it.
Of course. Of course, I'll arrange a copy for you. Don't worry.
Please, thank you, Sly. So you must have known that you needed to download for people the information and all the things that you have learned throughout the years. How did you decide what to put in and what to leave out? Because I know from authoring that that's the most difficult part, to decide what is the essence and what can I do without, what can I not do without.
I have to say, I think I really struggled with exactly that, in the process, because it was about, we can write a book about the story of Sylvester Chauke, but how is that going to necessarily help someone? And I was very critical. I think you'll understand that as an author, everything you write, you always think, oh no, it's not great,
No.
and you always, you always kind of overthink it. But what was quite important for me was that over the last, 2 decades, really, if I'm being honest, particularly in the last couple of years, I have had an avalanche of questions that I get on social media, particularly around how did you do it, where did you know, how do you approach it, etc., etc. So these questions were almost very clear, and I was able to cluster them in key areas because I could see where the interest was in terms of some of the questions, and then I was then able to respond, through a book, taking into consideration a lot of the questions that I do get, because I don't necessarily have the time nor the ability to be able to speak to every single person that I get a question from. But the book was a good opportunity then to be able to answer that question that many would have, but in a way that can reach as many people as possible. So that was really the reason why, the book journey began. It was, how do I try to answer these questions, and how do I try to express, the avalanche of interest around some of the key themes that they've seen or expressed in my life. The first manuscript came back, and I was not convinced. I have to say, I was like, because I was worried about being preachy. I was worried about being tsibinki, kind of. I didn't want it to be a lecture, and I didn't want to be fluffy. So it was quite important that I really sit and we spent a lot of time on each and every single element of it to ensure that it was necessary for it to be in the book, not just for the sake of it. And that was quite important for me.
I think it's so important that you actually mentioned the insecurities that we have. So when people see you have a book and carry the book, they don't realize what a grueling personal experience it is. And you go through all the emotions, because creativity, we both are creative on a day-to-day basis, but when it's your name, for some reason, it carries so much weight. So I am glad you were honest about that. Do you have a favorite chapter? Do you have a chapter that, if there's one thing that touches you, where you feel like this, I'm so glad I wrote about this?
Yes, I do. There's a chapter in the book, towards the end of the book, that is called "Uniting for Success." That's actually the chapter's name. And I think what was quite important for me in that chapter was about the opportunity that lies ahead, particularly amongst Black creatives, young Black leaders, Black individuals in corporate. That there's so much that we can do if we all collaborated and worked together to achieve, to make something bigger. And I always have a problem with too many talented Black people running too many small little things versus a few Black people running a big thing, And I think for me, there's an opportunity for us to not only open small little agencies and have hundreds of them, but actually, collaborate, with the value chain to build something much bigger. And it takes me back to the period, you recall that incredible agency, Head Boys McCann, which is in Sunning Hill, which was one of the first Black-owned advertising agency of its nature, but also size and the work that was being created by this agency, phenomenal work. And I was completely touched by that. Every time I would walk into that agency, I would feel incredibly inspired as a Black professional, to be in the space, because I knew that there was an opportunity. And I think since then, we haven't really invested enough in building, agencies that are powerful, not only in terms of influence, but in size and in its impact. And I think for me, that's what really excited me about the book. In that chapter particularly, it was the dream for what's to come and the opportunity that lies ahead for professionals in the creative space.
I mean, this is why every time I talk to you, I feel so enriched. I mean, you and I are part of a WhatsApp group of quite incredible creatives in South Africa, and we both want to bring a positive thing into that space because of how much we get to learn on a day-to-day basis. And I think that collaboration is so crucial. If you think about Jewish people and how they recommend the doctor, the gynae, the accountant, that's essentially what you're doing, is to build communities around ourselves and each other. So I want to go back to 2012 when you decide to start DNA Brand Architects. Now, it's important to note that at this point, your career is like this. Like, it's this. You are at the top of the game. You are doing really well. And there was really nothing wrong with you continuing in the direction that you were in. You would have probably ended up C-suite at a very sort of international company. But then you decide to say, screw this, I am going to start my own company. My question is twofold. Is, when did you realize that you're an entrepreneur? This is important, and I think, Sylvester, if you can talk to this, please do. Not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur. So I know we speak about it a lot. There is no embarrassment in you working with somebody else. There isn't any embarrassment at all. But you need the acknowledgement of understanding whether you can do this, because entrepreneurship is hard, people. It is difficult. Yeah. And it's easier to know that on the 25th, somebody is going to pay you than to figure out how you're going to do it for yourself. So my first question is, when did you realize that, you know what, I could do this entrepreneurship thing? And secondly, what was the passion inside of you that said, Sylvester, you've been making other people money, you can do it for yourself, be brave? What helped you to be that brave?
That's a great question, and I think you are so 100% right. Sometimes, particularly today, we do glamorize entrepreneurship as if every single person on the planet needs to become an entrepreneur. Yes. And I have to be honest with you, is that I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. I knew that I was going to be a businessman or a business person, working in a business, serving a business, because also we are good at that. We're good at doing our part to drive a big business. And I must say that having been involved with working with some really great businesses, or in great businesses with some good leaders, I was incredibly thankful and grateful for being in that environment when I was learning all the things that I was learning in that time, and being exposed to so many different challenges that a business can face. So the idea of being an entrepreneur was definitely not something that I thought I was going to go to do. I knew I was going to end up as a CMO of a large global brand. I knew that. And I knew that I was going to kill it in that environment. And when I started DNA, I was head of marketing and communications at Viacom, at MTV Networks Africa. So, the paycheck was good, the brand was amazing, the business was incredible. So it wasn't really like I needed to leave that. And I was grateful for the experience I was getting. But I have to say, something happens when you are learning and growing, working for someone. You get to learn and see things that ask you different questions. How would you do it if it was you? How would you run this if it was your company? How would you, so those questions were almost, I would say, they were taunting me, because, so Sly, it's so easy for you to judge, but what would you do if it was your business? Then I think, if it was my business, this is what I would do. And I think over time, this question just kept echoing louder and louder and louder. And I think there was a time where I felt I was ready, and that time, which actually links to your second question, it was not about I'm making money for another business, no, and therefore I need to go and become an entrepreneur. I think it was, I felt pregnant with ideas of what I think a business can be like, and I had dreams about what I think I could contribute to not only the industry, but to almost to the experience that I've been given by my leaders before me. I felt like they had taught me so much, and it was time for me to take the lessons and plow them in a space that will be able to not only fulfill my deepest wishes about what I wanted to do, but also will make them proud. I know it was weird, but I knew that Alex Okosi at Viacom would look at me and go, I'm proud of you, son, for doing this because of what I had learned from him. And I think that was something that really inspired me as well to say, you know what, I knew that if things didn't work out, I can always call Viacom or Nando's and get my job back,
Yeah.
But I knew that if I didn't do it, it was going to be something that would stay unfulfilled for a very long time. So I say I bungee jumped because I didn't overthink it. I just bungee jumped, and I just had to do it.
Oh, I think that's so amazing. So what kind of preparation did you do, both practically as well as emotionally? So, people say don't leave your job without X amount of money. I mean, did you have to
Yeah.
consult your parents? Because you have a very wonderful, close relationship with your parents. And what did they say? What kind of preparation? I mean, if you did any after the bungee jump.
So after the bungee jump, well, maybe let's go before the bungee.
Yeah.
There was a lot that I needed to consider. At a psychological level, I have to tell you, there's a difference from being a head of marketing and communication at MTV or a director of marketing at Nando's or whatever. When you call someone to say, can I meet you? Because I need to show you something. There is an easier acceptance for that happening, much more comfortably.
Exactly.
Psychologically, and I didn't know this, I didn't prepare. The one day I walked into a new potential client, and they said to me, who are you? And tell us more about your business. So I said, we're DNA brand architects. They're like, how long have you been in business? I'm like, we just started. I didn't want to say 1 month,
Exactly.
And I have to say, I walked out of that meeting feeling so sad because I felt for the first time I was not Sylvester from MTV, Sylvester from Nando's. I was Sylvester from DNA, which had done absolutely nothing at that at that point. So I had to start from zero, and I really was I almost had to have a mourning for the past, for that old title and what I was able to do and the rooms I was able to get in because of that. And now I had to go in with a new entity without any major credentials. It was really, really challenging. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my goodness, how am I going to be able to kind of get to a point where I can be able to get an appointment because of the fact that I'm from DNA brand architect. So that was at a psychological level, I really did suffer with that. I suffered with when people ask me, what do I do? And I say, I'm an entrepreneur. They wouldn't take me seriously. And they'll ask me, well, what do you do? I work in advertising, and they think, oh, please, or marketing or PR. They just think everyone does it. It's not that unique. And because also there's so many people that are doing this right now. Everybody with a cell phone and a laptop can do what we do in a way, right? And they say that. So I really did struggle at an emotional level. Was I had to remember that I'm no longer, surrounded by this leadership at Viacom or Nando's. I no longer had a big business that can manage and support me, whether it is from an IT perspective or budget or travel. All those things had to be something that I knew the buck will have to start and stop with me, and that was quite interesting to kind of go through. And then on the other hand, in terms of preparation, I knew that if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you can't be an entrepreneur and have debt. I'm actually incredibly scared of debt, and I think it's something that helps me a lot. I'm so scared of just someone calling me because I can't, I really, because personally, and there are two types of people, there are people that almost having debt helps them fight some more and they become creative. I'm the opposite. When I'm stressed out, I feel trapped, I can't think, I can't be myself. And I think that I really, really knew that I'm not going to be able to make it if I actually have got a lot of issues. So being able to make sure that I can pay off a car and pay off my bond and have food and have petrol, I think and help my family, which was quite important because I'm a breadwinner. And so I knew that needed to be managed. And so before I could bungee, I had prospects of a possible kind of, not a salary, but I could be able to put 1 + 1 together to be able to survive. And I remember, this is a very personal story. A friend of mine then said to me, I would have thought that by now you would have moved up the LSM ladder, because I was staying in a 2-bedroom apartment because I was about to go to become an entrepreneur, and I knew that I couldn't really stay in a big place when I didn't need it, So that kind of hurt. At a personal level, I felt, oh my God, am I going backwards? Am I going, from what society I suppose expect? And I was being judged by staying in a 2-bedroom apartment, and I was like, oh my God. It's tough. It's rough being an entrepreneur because the emotion, is goes from high to low in milliseconds, and I think the ability for us to be able to manage all that is important for any entrepreneur. Anyway, I go on.
No, I mean this is a great conversation because I also have not talked publicly about the psychological dealing of not being Lerato Shabalala, the editor of True Love magazine, Lerato Shabalala, the editor of Sunday Times Lifestyle, just me, and I remember talking to a mutual friend of ours, Coach Obafo, about this feeling of coming with these big brands and then one day you come as yourself and nobody tells you that feeling of not knowing, like displacement almost, and entrepreneurship is an ego death because then you have to redefine yourself without
Yes,
the title and the thing, and so
absolutely. And I must say, what was quite weird, was that I would get very frustrated about, I don't want to be a one-trick pony. I don't want to be known for what I've done at Nando's, and like 10 years later, when people say Sylvester from Nando's, I used to go, oh my God, no. I mean, is that all they know? All they remember is me from? So every time people read a bio and they'll talk about Nando's, and I would be like, oh, but that's so many years ago. And there's so much more that I've done. So I was very stressed out by, I hope that it was not my best work. I hope that there's a lot to do. And because sometimes when they say, Leonardo Shabalala from the editor of True Love magazine, they almost place you in the past versus being in the present. And that, and that dance is hectic.
it is the most hectic thing, and like you're speaking to my heart because these are conversations that you have internally that very few people can relate to, but I think a lot of people can, but we're not open about that feeling of lost. But then you find yourself.
Mm.
Incredible. And then suddenly you have big clients and things start to work out. But you first have to go through that psychological realignment. How, as the breadwinner, did your parents take it when you came to them to tell them, see the title and the thing, I'm gonna jump, I'm gonna try something else? Were they petrified? Were they excited for you?
I was the one who was petrified. They were not in any way concerned, funny enough. And I think maybe they were quite naive about this whole thing more than I was. But I have to say that I actually tried to not tell them too early. I was worried about if I tell them, they think they think it's risky, and that might affect my decisions. So I kind of just kept it, hush hush, for a couple of months until I could find my bearings. But you know what I will tell you is that when I then invited them to come to the office a few years later, to walk into the building and to walk into the office, I cried so much that day because they kind of believed it in faith that it was going to work out. And when I could finally bring them to an office that their son, I suppose, had built, it validated the fact that it was the right thing for me to do. But they were not too concerned. I think I was the one too worried about it.
I think that's so incredible that they've gotten to see you just ascend and ascend and ascend, and seeing you through some important moments. In 2018, you got married to Tumelo Musini. He's just a gorgeous person, both in and out. I'm lucky enough to know both of you. And so I guess one of the things that stood out for me, and the picture from your wedding, you got married at the Zeitz Mocha. I think it had just opened actually. And then there's a
Yes.
photo of you and Dumi that was taken by a female photographer. I forget her name, Jackie. Is it Jackie?
Yes, it's Jackie.
Yeah, and it was voted as one of the best wedding photographs of the decade, right? So what was it like? I mean, the wedding is something else. We'll talk about that. It looked so beautiful. But what was it like when you came to your parents and you told them you wanted to get married?
To get married. I have to say that it was probably one of the moments in my life where I felt that I grew the most, because I was going into an uncharted territory completely, because I had never done it before and none of us had ever experienced it. So I was very grateful, first of all, for the fact that I have parents, and both Jimmy and I have parents who let us be, and of course, I'm not in any way downplaying the fact that it was challenging for them, and for them to kind of get to experience this new way of loving, which is very different, for them. And I think I personally was very, very worried about, even if we say we're going to get married, how are we going to get married? How does it work? Who pays lobola? Do we pay lobola? And I was really, really stressed out, because I was worried about, number one, are we doing, why are we doing this? And if we are doing it, how are we going to be doing it in such a way that it honors Dumi and I and our love for each other, but also honors our parents and the role they played in us. So the sensitivities around it were quite profound, and I felt very, very concerned about taking norms that didn't make sense to me, and then being able to play them out in our wedding. And so it was quite challenging to get to a space that we felt was more comfortable for us to be able to manage. And part of that was, lots of counseling before that was very helpful, between Jumi and I, to talk about why we're doing it, what is the reason behind all of this? How would we want to do it? Just being able to really have that conversation and for months just get to understand that was something that helped me a lot. But my parents, they always focus on one thing, and Tumi's parents as well, is, are you happy? And I think when you are happy, it's almost very difficult for them to say no or to want to get involved. But I have to say the growth that came through that process was profound, and I learned so much. And I think a lot of the times we underestimate our culture, we underestimate our parents, you know, we underestimate a lot of things because we don't want to be out and open about those things. And therefore, we're not able to deal with them. And I think this experience for me, it taught me the importance of being true to self, but also being able to honor the people around you as you celebrate. That was an amazing experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things, so both of us are from Soweto, and Soweto, we love our hood. But you know, Soweto is what it is, and our parents are of a particular generation. And I think, I guess one of my sort of last few questions for you, it's probably one of the most important things I would have asked you today. There are a lot of people, Sylvester, who look at you and think your life is charmed. You know, you've got 3 gorgeous poodles. I think it's Nico, Mushka,
Nico, Mushka, and Lulu.
and your life, just when you go and see Sylvester's Instagram, it's at Sylvester Chauke, by the way, you just realize how charmed your life looks. But everybody, as you said now, gets worried about things. Everybody, it's not easy. And I know there's a kid right now who is watching you, who, first of all, is struggling with, how do I come out? I think my parents know. And let alone getting married, let alone, I want to be in a same-sex marriage. Just finding this time, because this time is constricting for a lot of people. A lot of things come up, and for all of us, it's very difficult to hide things. People want to free themselves, and so there's somebody who's watching you now, a kid who's in school. And I know your book, you meant it for people who are students or are starting out in jobs, and that kind of advice. So Sylvester, somebody's watching you right now and relating to you, but doesn't know how. And so the question is twofold. The question is about the acceptance of self, no matter what that is, right, for you, but particularly for somebody who feels like they have to come out about being gay to their parents. And what did your parents do differently? What kind of advice would you give to somebody, to parents of a child who's going to come out? Because as I say, it's wonderful for us to write books and people look at us and it's very glamorized, but we are still having a human experience, and we cannot inspire people if we cannot inspire them in the fullness of our being. And so what advice would you have for somebody who has to be open with their folks and the parents of a child who's coming out? What kind of sensitivities can you impart that your parents were helpful to you with?
I think that this is probably one of the most important questions. I think you are 100% right. This is it's one of the things that a lot of young people write to me about and ask me a lot of questions about, because it is a challenging experience for anyone, for both the individual going through this and also the parents as well, because there is a serious implication for what that means for them and their community. So if you're a young person and you are experiencing feelings within you that you probably know, because sometimes our parents are never going to say no very directly, but when you're watching TV, like what happened to me, I was watching television and they saw this very flamboyant gay guy on screen, And my mom said, and I was 12 at the time, so I was quite young, and I wasn't fully realized. My mom said, "Kill Sylvester."
Oh, wow.
And I cried so much
Yes, too.
because I felt ridiculed. I felt like my mom was insulting me, and they were making fun of me in the family. I walked out of the house, and I was outside, come on, and I cried so much because I couldn't believe that that's how my mom sees me as. And of course, at the time, I was just struggling with, what does it mean to be gay? Does it mean that I'm going to be wearing dresses, or does it mean like I need to be like Somizi, or does it mean that I am I'm a drag artist, a performer? So there's so many different aspects to it as well. And I was so scared to even say I was gay, because I thought that being gay came with a lot of baggage, and people would not respect me, and they would laugh at me, and they'll think I'm a caricature. And I was really worried about that. I still wanted to be myself, and I wasn't ready to assume that kind of gay or that kind of gay, because I was still figuring out which one or which gay I am, right? Because I didn't know. I mean, there's no school, that taught me that. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a lot of internal work to be done to accept the fact that you are, number one, gay, but also not only are you gay, but are you Somizi now? Because that's what people say.
Yeah.
Are you now going to be RuPaul?
Yep.
Is that what you? And I think because there's a limited, and I still think it still is like that today, a limited idea of what being gay is and what it looks like. Because it's either we have to be hairdressers, makeup artists, performers, flamboyant, fashion designers. It's always in the same kind of experience and expectation. So I struggle with that. So to a young person out there, I just want you to know that the struggle is actually part of the dealing with the outcome, because it's hard for you to put yourself out to the world when you haven't really been clear about who you are. So I think just being able to spend time thinking about that, and knowing that the questions and the challenges that you're going through are very valid, and they make sense, and they don't have to be for an experience for the whole world. It's what you go through, and it's what you have to deal with, and it's actually pretty okay for you to have those questions. And we know that at that time you're also very awkward. You're also incredibly concerned about what people think, your friends, your family, your community, your school, etc. But I think it's necessary, and I think that's what I want to say, that it's okay to go through that, because it's just it's a part of the process of you getting to find yourself later on. And when you do that, you will get to a point where you understand, now this is the kind of gay I want to become. And that it's not that prototype that you are seeing and that you've been told. You have to be clear about what is it that you want to be, and no one can tell you that. You are the one that needs to kind of find that. So firstly, spend time figuring that out. Question. What helped me was writing them down, writing the feelings, or now you can voice note, you can record them. I think there's a lot that you can do now, but just talk to yourself, and talk to yourself a lot. And part of your strength is going to come from that. Secondly, please, I think the thing is, we want to be accepted, right? So, and I think that's what is the most challenging part, is because we want to say the things that are going to make people accept us more. And I think it's that acceptance that is the challenge, personally, for me. Because you want your father to accept you, your mother to accept you, your friends to accept you, your school to accept you. But what if they don't? And I think that was a struggle for me, is maybe I mustn't wait for them to accept me, but I need to accept me first. Because then I know I won't let myself down by accepting myself, but I know that I can't guarantee what my dad is going to feel and what they're going to say. So I think maybe the trying to be accepted is really what makes it very difficult, what makes it the road very difficult. Because I think only much later on in life, I felt that if they do not accept me, I will still have to accept myself.
Yes.
You know, I will still have to show up. I can't change myself now because they don't accept me. And that gave me so much more freedom. So I think accept yourself. And if your parents and your family accept you, bonus. But
Yeah.
there is a chance that they're not going to accept you. But that doesn't mean that you can't accept yourself. The question about family advice that I can give to parents, I think what was amazing for me was I was terrified about my father finding out. And I was concerned about not only what he thinks, but what my uncles are going to say, my aunts are going to say. The extended family actually I was more terrified by what they're going to say more than I was terrified about what my parents were going to say. Because I was worried about the shame that it was going to bring to my family. I thought. So I was petrified. And I think from my mother's side, what was quite helpful for me was, eventually when I got the courage, not to just say I was gay, but I think not saying it in those words for me was just bringing my mom in particular closer to her understanding that I was really battling with it myself.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I just woke up and I went, yay, this is it. So I said to my mother, hey, with mama, I can see what it's along, I can see what in, and it's really, really difficult, who be my phone, and because I don't know, I'm trying to figure it out. And when I said that to her, I felt that she understood me. I felt like when she saw that it was a process for me, I am trying to come to accept myself in this new way, that it was difficult for me as well. It made it more acceptable for her to walk the journey with me. I think rather than I just arrived and I was gay and I was proud and I was excited.
Yeah.
That helped me a lot because they could see I was battling as well. And that I didn't just choose it like a multiple choice question, but it was a process that I was going through. That helped me. And when I speak to my mother now about it, I think that day changed it for us, because if they knew that I could just change it, I could just decide I'm no longer gay, for example, it was that easy, then I think it would have made the process a bit more difficult. But they knew that I too was struggling like they are struggling with it, or they're going to struggle with it. So both myself and her and my parents, we were all on the journey of struggling to make sense of it. And that was what made it different for me.
Sylvester, you're just, I mean, the bars you've dropped in this interview have meant a lot to me. So I actually love talking to people because of what I get from people, and what you have given me and what you're going to give to other people with your honesty is love. I think the most radical thing you can ever do is to love yourself, because in order to get to love, you have to accept yourself. And I love the fact that you spoke about the reality that not everyone is going to be on your team. And sometimes it's going to be the people you love the most. But if you are not on your own team, and no matter what it is that you are struggling with, that if you don't have that love for yourself, you can't push through. Because accepting yourself, Sylvester, allowed you to walk into boardrooms as yourself. You know what I mean? I know somebody
Yeah.
who was in marketing who would wear a wedding ring even though he was gay, so that people didn't judge him and were confused, And I just thought, geez, I mean, you're amazing. You're good at your job. You're good at your job. This should not be the thing that now is like
Yeah.
the thing that clouds you. And I think that because you walked in as yourself and you accepted yourself from the beginning, you were able to just be true. And that's when you can really, really reach your highest heights, when you are yourself. You can't do that
Mm.
by pretending to be somebody else. And I think that's why diversity and inclusion are so important, Sylvester, because you represent somebody who hasn't seen somebody who's gay like you, and you speak to them. So that flamboyant guy speaks to somebody else. So the more diverse things are, the more
Yeah.
people have references of like, oh, I like Sylvester's life. I want to have the husband and the pools, and you know what I mean. I want to go overseas with my husband. I want to like, you know what I mean? Like, and you do that for people, and I think your existence is so important for the validation of other boys growing up in Soweto, um, and looking at you and thinking, yes, I can too. You know, yes, I can too.
Mm.
So I guess my last question, you're just so amazing, Sylvester. I want to talk to you all day, but you know what I mean?
Oh,
You both
yeah.
have things to do. So my last question to you is, I mean, you uh, have been and sit on the advisory board for the World Economic Forum's Global Shapers. You, from GQ to Men's Health, have been given all kinds of awards. Your life really has been amazing in terms of what you've managed to achieve so far, but you're not even 40 yet, right? So what is still
Yes.
to come, right? What is the thing that makes you sing, that makes you excited, where you're like, I cannot wait? What does the future look like? Because we must get excited about some things. Yes, it is a difficult time, but we must get excited. So what's still coming? What are you still doing? What are the things that you can't wait to manifest, including a second book? Just saying.
Yes, yeah, of course, of course, of course. I have to say that the one thing that excites me is obviously the potential that our space, the space that we work in brand communication has for a new generation of thinkers and leaders who are going to be leading it into its next phase. So when I was growing up, I grew up looking at the likes of Nunu Jingela, who you know, inspired so many of us to know that we can make it the highest level of the advertising industry, for an example, if and business in general. The likes of Nkwenkwe Nkomo, who back in 1998, started an internship to get Black kids to get into advertising and brand communication. I think the likes of Happy Jingila, who continue to be a lighthouse for leadership within the space. And I think, Peter Wundler, I can go on and on. And I think we have been left with such an amazing example of people that have done it. And I think what we need to now do, which is where my passion is to be able to push on the next wave of leaders, the Nunu Jingilas of tomorrow.
Yes.
In the industry, because we are seeing that the industry is bleeding Black talent at the highest level of the C-suite within within the communication industry is leaving the industry to go to other corporates and other businesses. And I think for me, it's quite challenging, because we need to be able to have a pipeline, of leaders who are going to take over from them and be able to lead forward. So what excites me is being part of that story, being part of a business that is going to be, churning these incredible young strategists, creatives, writers, and thinkers who are going to be building an incredibly different yet exciting agency experience of the future, industry of the future. Because now I can say that shift is taking place, and I know you are one of them. Our group is one of them. We are charting a completely different kind of industry, and I can almost guarantee you that in 10 years' time, we are going to be the forces that the industry in this country are going to listen to. And I think that is what excites me. So for us to get to that, we have to continue pushing, continue working. We have to be consistent, because we can't be excellent in 2 years and then be dismal in, for the next 2. So we need to be, consistent, but we also need to lead. I think stepping up and leading. And I think for me, what excites me about my next phase is really about that, their leadership in building businesses that are going to become really big, major businesses that are going to welcome and continue to sustain the industry going forward. That excites me.
Oh man, and you are going to. I think that the dream that God has for you is bigger than you think. I think you've done big things now, but I see you really being a person who is a sage, who is going to really move us forward as Black people, as Africans. I bless your life, Sylvester, because you have blessed
Thank you.
so many, not in creating employment only, but in creating a platform and a space for us to celebrate ourselves. I really wish that God blesses you and Dumi and your parents with everything, all your heart's desires, that you are kept safe, that all the things you enjoy just wrap you, surround you, and Magwande Sylvester, thank you so, so much.
Oh, that is amazing. That feels like a blanket you've just placed around me, and it's warm and kind, and I'm so grateful for it. It makes my heart sing, and I feel humbled and really grateful. And thank you for taking the time to speak to me today. And as you can feel, there's so much to say and there's so much to do. But it's through these conversations, because this is going to live much longer than both of us. So, so yeah, let's do it. Let's
do it. Follow DNA Brand Architects. They are on Instagram. Their page is fantastic. He is Sylvester Chauke on all the platforms. And support Black, be about Black. Me and Sylvester are about Black. And remember, you can listen to this podcast on Spotify, as well as Apple Podcasts. But if you want to see us, because me and Sylvester were cute. You can go to my YouTube channel to watch it, or to loretashabalala.com. Sylvester, thank you so much. I love you. You're amazing. Bless.
Thank you so much. I love you more, and thank you so much again. I appreciate it.
Bye. Bye, Sly. Bye.